What's up, fam? This is going to be a two-part series about everything that you need to know about Rockwool clones. My first time using Rockwool clones was 1997 or 1998, one of those 2 years. And ever since then, that's all I've used. Sometimes I went through a period where I used the Easy Cloner, but I always went back to Rockwool cubes. And these are the cubes that I went back to. These are not Grodan. I don't use Grodan anymore. I started using Grodan from the beginning. From 1997 until about 5 years ago, they just went downhill. Okay? Their cubes are more, they're not as firm. The consistency is not good on them. They used to be nice and firm, and now they're all over the place. Like maybe 20% of the Grodan ones are the cubes that I want, and the rest of them I have to throw out. On these Cultilene ones from Europe, I throw out less of them. I throw out more like 20% of these aren't the right consistency, but the rest are. So I started using Cultilene, which can be very hard to find. You probably have to go online to get them. Okay, they're probably not going to be in your local grow shop. So I've been using these since 1997, 1998, Rockwool. Before Rockwool, I would probably put in something like this. I would have filled up 18 little things of soil and just stuck the cutting in there and then put the dome on. I would have done something like that. From like 1993 until 97, I would go right into soil, okay? After that, when I started dealing with a lot more clones, I needed a lot more clones because I was doing about like 25 plants per light at that point in 1998. At the end of 1998, I was doing 25 plants per light. So I needed a lot more clones. And that's when I was introduced to Rockwool. These Rockwool cubes right here that still have the paper on them. These are the ones that I like, okay? This style right here. So the ones that aren't the end cubes, the end ones, they're not as consistent. These are the ones I throw out. But we're going to put this right here because we're going to take some measurements just to see something. To understand the consistency in weights. So I'm going to separate the cubes into the two consistencies. The consistency that I like and the consistency that I don't like. So we can see how it affects the weights of the water and what they hold in the cube. We're going to try and understand that relationship. The best way to understand this, the easiest, is just the math. Is trying to understand the math. And we can understand that with a scale. Okay? In collecting data and understanding the data. Okay? So let's see what these cubes weigh. The better consistency ones, $7.2 grams. And then the worst consistency ones, 5.97, say 6. 7.2 and 6. Okay? There's a 1.2 gram difference there. 1.2 grams. That's like 20% more of the smallest, from the smallest number. We're talking about 20% more. Now let's look at the water weight of what it can hold. Now I'm putting them in a bucket of water, and now we're going to see the difference in water weight to understand the consistency, okay? Or lack of consistency, and that's why I want to pick out my cubes right and keep them all the consistent ones, okay? Some of you might like the area ones more and want to use those. It might make more sense for you, okay? But the way that I do it, it makes more sense to use the more dense ones. I like the more dense ones because I need the water. I need more water in my cube to go through the process that I'm going to show you, this process that I'm going through, to get to the roots in a reasonable amount of time within 14 days. Okay? So, let's see. And I always take a little out, so it's not, it can't be completely saturated. Okay, so let's see what this cube is. 61.5 grams. 61.5 grams. That was the less dense one. $61.5 versus 66.6. Say 66.5. 66.5. 61.5 versus 66.5. That's 5 extra grams of water weight that I have in the more consistent cube. And that's why these are the cubes that I'm looking for in my pack. And I'm throwing the other ones out. So now you can see that in terms of a number to understand. Okay? That's a lot of extra grams of water inside a cube. And it's gonna require different tech than if you were in a less water situation. Okay? Anytime you change one thing, you have to change something else with the dome experience and what you need to accomplish there. Because there's going to be times where you're trying to hold water in. There's going to be examples of when you're trying to do the opposite of that because there might be too much water in here depending on how many cuttings you take. Okay? Because one person might take 6 clones in this whole entire thing here. One person might be using 6 cubes. I only use 6 cubes in here. When I used to use at least, I would put 18 cubes in here at least. Okay? But if I put 18 cubes in here, like 3 rows of 6, there would be a lot more water in here than what I'm doing today when I'm putting 6 cubes in here. Now I put 6 cubes in here. I want more space because I don't want anything to touch anymore. I'm not doing commercial operations like I was in the past when I was doing 25 plants a light or maybe even 50 plants a light. All sea of green, all Northern Lights number 5 phenotype, okay? Where I'm just growing the main cola. I'm just growing main colas every 8 inches. I'm growing a main cola, which is a whole different plant. No veg time at all. It's stretched to the right, at most 2 days veg. 2 days veg in 4-inch Rockwool cubes, okay? But that was the late 90s, early 2000s. Now it's all about only the best quality. We do organics today, like in soil, but I still start in Rockwool cubes, okay? Because it's consistent. On top of that, I'm dealing with old clones. Some of my clones that I might be working with can be up to 30 years old, okay? And because of that, that clone wasn't supposed to last 30 years to Mother Nature, okay? So they can become harder to clone, and you have to put in more work on them, okay? You have to be able to understand the moisture relationship to that specific clone, okay? Plus, if you're just putting the clone into soil, you might be dealing with a 30-year-old clone, putting it into soil. And you're putting it into an environment where there's other pathogens and problems that can get to your clone easier. This is more sterile. What we're doing here is more sterile, okay? And it doesn't have roots yet, so I don't consider it part of the grow yet because it doesn't even have roots yet, okay? So I treat the cloning stage differently because it's not a seed. And some of these genetics we're trying to preserve for decades, and we want the least amount of problems, okay? At this point, there's probably a big group of people just wanting a cloning formula in terms of what to put in the water. You can clone with just water. It's not really about that. But for those people who want something like that need to know something like that to feel right, a third of what you flower with, a third of your flowering feed, whatever you flower with, a third of that, and then don't add any bud boosters if you use bud boosters and stuff like that, okay? I don't use any gels or powders at all right? Say that I had a 30-year-old clone that I needed to root very badly. What would I use for something like that to make sure it's gonna root? In a gallon of water, I would put 2 milliliters of Super Thrive. That's it, okay? And then a third of my flowering feed, all right? About 1 EC, something like that. 1 EC, 0.8 EC, something like that, 0.5 EC, but between 0.5 and 1 EC, okay? But it's more rooting clones. It's more about is about getting the cube to the right amount of water, going through a process. The dry cube of the bad one was 6 grams. Wet, it's 61.5, okay? The good consistency cube is 66.5. Should be 66.5. Okay, we'll call it that, 66.5. Now it's about getting the clone is gonna wanna root when it's the right dryness, but it has to go down. It has to go down. The weight in the water has to be lost at a small rate within the next 14 days. You can't let it happen fast. This is how you get the roots. This is what you should be more concerned with. Day 1 through day 7, day 1 through day 9, you really only want to lose 1 gram of water per day. That's it. So if you're losing more than a gram of water, like more than 1.2, then you have to figure out how to hold the water better. Okay? You have to not lose it as fast. By day 9, you want to be down to 50 grams. Okay? You don't want to be at 40 grams by day 9. It's too fast. Okay? And when it's too fast, not all clones are going to want to root, especially old ones. They need to go through a slower process, okay? You want to be that, like, the root ready, like when it's perfect, when the roots will come, when it's 40 to 42 grams. But you want to get down there at day 13, like day 13, day 12, day 14, okay? But by day 9, you want it more moist. You see what I mean? So you really want, when you're cloning, to get your roots right, to get the roots fast, this is what you want to be paying attention to. It's the weights. And that's why you want to use more consistent cubes. Before I insert my cuttings into the Rockwool, I make sure I turn it upside down. That big hole there, I don't use that, okay? And I want to stay away from that. I turn it upside down in a way where I know where it is, so I know where to stay away from, okay? And the Rockwool is like an accordion. It's like an accordion, fam, okay? So if you try to just stick the clone in it, sometimes it'll get all messed up and all torn around because it won't make a circle perfectly, because the fibers in here, the way it's put together, it's like an accordion if you hold it this way, okay? So what I do is I take a toothpick before I do everything and I make a path. I just insert the toothpick, I turn the toothpick, and I make a path through the accordion, okay? In the Rockwool cube. But, you know, I'm looking at it like it's an accordion right now, okay? And I'm trying to make an easy path. So when I put my cutting in, it's nice and smooth and doesn't have this big gap in there to prevent that from happening less, okay? There'll be less gap that you have to fix. You know, when you get that gap, you have to fix it by like taking the scissors or the toothpick and pushing the Rockwool onto the branch, the cutting, so it connects. Okay, so there's no air gap in there. So this is the first thing that I do, okay, is I do that. Now, do you see, look at the difference in water. On this side right here, there's only 6 cuttings. I put them in cups. This is my new way. This is my old way of doing it for production, and this is my new way of doing it to have less problems. Okay, I keep everything away from each other now, see, in cups. So there's no way for any runoff to infect another plant, another clone, if there is a problem, because I can be dealing with 30-year-old clones sometimes. Sometimes, you know, a lot of my clones are 10 plus years, okay? So I have to be more careful, because I can't if I lose them, I can't get them back, okay? So I do it this way to create less problems, because there's viruses going around and lots of things happening out there. So I keep I make it so that the roots can never contaminate anything and there's no runoff ever, because they sit in cups. This is the new tech right here, okay? When I put the dome on here, there's much less water than here, because over here I have 18 clones, okay? There is so much more water in this tray when the dome is on, that the dome is so foggy, there's so much water in there, and there's too much water, and you have to get more out, okay? Because you need 1 gram out of every single one of these cubes. So out of this whole system, this is like its own system, and so is this. In this system, you only need to release 1 gram of water per cube, 6 grams in this whole system. But in this system, you have to release 18 grams, 1 gram per cube, okay? That's gonna be a lot harder to do here. It's not gonna happen on its own. For example, having the dome on these, which you're gonna need, having the dome on both of these systems, because each one is its own system, okay? This one here, the fog that goes on the dome came out of these cubes. You have to keep this closed. This one you have to keep closed because this one is gonna want to lose more than 1 gram a day because it's like nothing in here, okay? So you're gonna keep these closed. It's gonna be much harder, all right? You might even wanna consider putting a few extra cubes with no cuttings in it on the side so there's a little bit more water in here if you're losing too much water every day. That's one thing to consider. But in this environment, the holes can be completely open, and it might be impossible to lose 18 grams of water in this system, even with the holes completely open, where for a few days you might have to go like this for 10 minutes a day and keep an eye on them so they don't wilt, okay? You might have to take them out of the light when you do this, okay? Because cuttings with no roots are very sensitive to light, and you do not want to stress them out in any way. So if you're going to take the dome off, you should turn off the light every time you do that. The main light that's on them. A room light is okay? But no direct light on the clone on the cuttings when you take the dome off, okay? But now you have to lose 18 grams. Do you see the difference? There's not one way to do things. When you put less, now I have to hold the moisture because it's gonna want to lose too much. When there's too many, when there's so many like this, now you have to do more things to it, okay? Now, one of the benefits of cloning in Rockwool versus aeroponics, like the cloners, is that when the power goes out on those cloners, you lose everything, okay? And you could have 30-year-old clones, okay? I'm never gonna put 30-year-old clones into an easy cloner. The mother is always gonna go into Rockwool, okay? That's always gonna be my method. And like I said, Cultilene is the Rockwool that I use. When it comes to cloning, to understand how something is gonna root, how these cuttings are gonna root, it just comes down to you controlling the water and the way it leaves, how fast the water leaves. That's all you need to be concerned about, and you don't want too much light on your plants. Like I use T5 bulbs. For 4 of these in a row like this in a 4-foot space, I only have 2 bulbs, 55 watts each of T5 lighting. Okay, so for 4 of these trays, I only use 110 watts is all I use for light. And it's like this far away from the plant. It might be 2 feet. That's another thing that you want to be aware of is a lot of people might have their lights too close to the clones and too much light. It's a very, very minimal amount of light that you want, okay? And the clones will tell you when it's too much light. They'll look funny. Okay, the clones don't really want light at this point. They want clouds. At this point, they want clouds. They want a cloud. I keep my light on for 16 hours a day. That's it. Okay, 16 to 18 hours on, and the rest off. When these get down to 40 grams, I'm locking them in. I'm locking them in. If they're going too fast, I use this for control too. Okay? I open and close these for control. I have to think about, do I need more water lost? I have to open them up. Okay? So you have to think about each individual system. And when you change something, then you have to change the way that you treat that system if you want roots at the right times and you want consistency. Another thing that is very important to understand is that you want to take cuttings of mothers that are in amazing health. It's better to wait a few days and get the mother back to health if she's not in good health, okay? Because that is what's gonna control the health of your cuttings, not the food that you think you're putting in the cube. It's really about the health of the mother controls the health of the cuttings so it can get through that 14-day period and not go downhill. In the next video, we're gonna be cloning with the mothers. You're gonna see them, okay? That'll be the part 2 video. This is the part 1 video, and we do this because it'll get age restricted and this won't. And I have to monetize these videos because there's gonna be amazing information, amazing, valuable information of somebody who's been in this industry since 1991. I've been in this industry. I've been growing since 1993. No books, all from my own personal experience on how I improved over the years. All right, and how I keep it more traditional than the growers of today with the way that I do things, but still in a consistent way. If you clone this way, you should get 100%. You should get 100% results. If something didn't root, so something was off with all the numbers that we discussed in this video. In the next video, I'm not going to be going over these numbers. So you're going to have to refer back to this video, because in the other video, I can't monetize it. So all my most valuable information is going to be in this video. But I'm sure there'll be some other stuff in the next video that I didn't cover yet. So please stay tuned for the part 2. Okay, fam? Peace.